Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live Week 8 reaction show. Excited everybody's here. I'm thinking about this lately and saying this also. Again, those who choose to hang with me, thank you for making me part of your fantasy football routine. It does mean an awful lot to me. The community of fantasy people is always an amazing thing, and that's probably the best part for me about fantasy football. And love the games, love the breakdowns, but I love the people even more. So thank you for hanging out with me today. Anthony Cervino is going to be coming in soon. Go over some of these reactions with me. End of the show, we'll give you a Monday night football preview. Remember, we're on 5 days a week. We're off Wednesday and Thursday. You can always catch the replay if you can't be with us live, but it's great when you're here live. Let us know when you're in the chat. The Start Sit Show will be every Sunday. Now, we will have one this week as always, but during the Sunday's time slot, what is it? Oh man, what game is it? Oh my gosh, I think it's Miami and Kansas City. Yeah, that's a Germany game. And when we have that game, we're also going to do a Saturday afternoon start sit stream because I know a lot of people are going to be watching that huge profile game. So we'll have 2 start sit streams this week. We'll have one Saturday at 4 Eastern, and then we'll have the usual one Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So either way, whichever one works better for you, see me there. All right, let's start out with the Bengals. It was so good to see Joe Burrow look fully ready to go 100%. He probably was there in his last game before the bye, but he really, really looked the part in this game. Now, look, San Francisco, we'll get to them in a minute. And on paper, they're a good defense. We'll talk about them. But Burrow did what Burrow had to do. A road game, big road trip, big stage. They're used to those. I mean, this team has been to the AFC Championship. They've been to the Super Bowl. So the stage is never big for them. But Burrow completes all but 4 of his 32 passes, just completely surgical, throws 3 touchdowns, runs for 43 yards. So what amazing, amazing fantasy day for Joe Burrow. People were asking me about him in start sit questions. And I just told him, I go, I know you have other good options, but if Burrow's healthy, you got to start Joe Burrow because he's Joe Burrow and he has receivers. And that's what we do. Now, we also like Joe Mixon in this game, and people in the start sit stream were asking about him. I definitely liked him here. Normally, he's a compiler, but we've been learning that San Francisco defense against the run, it is not a strong unit this year. They normally are lights out against the run. This is a middling defense. And basically, when you give them some receiver heavy looks and they have to get out of their base, they really can be had in the running game. And we saw Joe Mixon over 5 yards per carry in this game. He gets a few catches, scores a touchdown. It wasn't a massive fantasy day because Burrow had that one, but still, you're looking 110 combined yards and a touchdown for Joe Burrow. I mean, for Joe Mixon. Sorry about that. Yeah, you're going to take that all day long. And in the receiving game, so T. Higgins played 67% of the snaps, a little lower than usual, but he got 6 targets, caught 5 for 69. So it's a very solid game. We were obviously hoping for more. We get greedy, right? But Tyler Boyd gets a touchdown. Andre Yoshivas gets a touchdown. Hope I said his name right. Not an easy one there. But yeah, so anyway, it would have been nice that Higgins got one of those. But again, 67% of the snaps. Maybe they're still ramping him up to where he plays in that 85, 90% range where we often see him. But if you start him, you certainly complain. And of course, Jamar Chase. Chase does what Chase does. He gets you 100 yards, catch 10 yards a catch, but it's fine. With the offensive line since he has, they were never going to be bombs away in this game. And it had a really nice schemed play. Chase was actually open, like legit open in the end zone for the touchdown, which, again, play design. Zach Taylor has proven over some time. He has made some adjustments over the years and he's done well with those. And, when something gets figured out, he has some answers. So we were a little harsh on him going through maybe week 5 of last year, but he is really earning a lot of credibility and he's a flexible coach. And, certainly it helps to have great weapons, but we've seen plenty of coaches with those not be creative and figure out things. So you really hats off to Zach Taylor here. But the Bengals, now this is the team. This is the team. The defense isn't very good. All right. But that could change when we get to the playoffs. Lou Anarumo, I'll give him this. When you have to game plan for a playoff game, which is hyper-specific game planning, he could dial up a lot of things that could make this defense look better than they are right now. But the run defense isn't what it was. The corners aren't playing at the high level we've seen, especially Cheeto Awuzie is coming off an ACL injury. That might be the deal there. But overall, Bengals, wheels up. They are back to being a legit Super Bowl contender because their quarterback is healthy and is a very solid football team. 49ers side of the ball, good time for the bye for them. Anthony Cervino told us last week, and he was right, all teams deal with injuries, no doubt. And there's no excuses in the NFL. But here's the cold, hard reality of it. The way the 49ers piece their roster together, it's a stars and scrubs mix. The Chargers have done that, but the Chargers have lost big time on that. The 49ers have mostly won playing with the stars and scrubs approach. But when you are down a couple of those stars, it's very hard to compete at an elite level. Again, there's no excuses. It's just the cold, hard reality. Trent Williams, a left tackle's out. Trey Hendrickson left the game for a little bit, but he played much of it, and it was a problem. The 49ers need Trent Williams, for when he's on the side against that elite pass rusher, but when he's not, they can give Cole McKivitz more help on the other side because he is a liability. And so it's a collection of things. You need this player for the other players to be in better positions to succeed. And then, of course, no Deebo Samuel. Again, no excuses. Third time I said it. But this team is designed to need their stars. They have very little margin for error against good football teams. But we pointed out the defense earlier that you can run on this 49ers defense. And this is not the defense we've seen in years past. And so this is a team that's going to have to win with their offense. And if they're missing key components of that offense, they will not go far. 3-game losing streak for them right now. Again, the bye, it's a perfect time. It would seem likely they get Deebo and they get Trent Williams back, and then they get back, and the offense is fine. Now, Brock Purdy, he made some big-time throws in this game. I'm going to say hats off to him. He lost the game. He only got 17 points on the board, and, there's that. And there were some throws that were poor, but he really stepped up and made some really, really big throws in this game. Basically a couple to Ayuk and also to his great tight end, George Kittle, the only two players in the passing game, which is what they have, who produced. Remember last week, Juwan Jennings was getting like 9 targets, and that was at the expense of Ayuk in the second half. But they focused in. Now, again, they got beat, but they go into the bye, should be healthier. Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey. Do we really need to talk about him? He's great. I mean, we know that. It's beautiful to watch him because even in a game where he's not completely dominant, when he gets the ball, 2 touchdowns again, over 100 scrimmage yards, 6 catches. He's a fun player to watch. And again, when the 49ers have all of their pieces, just the things they can do from a creative standpoint, it really puts the defenses in a bind. And, anyway, we won't talk about that all day long. That probably good on that. But the 49ers, we'll see what the bye does to them. But right now they are a scuffling team. And, it'll depend who they play, assuming they get to the playoffs, which probably likely, right? But Seattle technically is ahead of them. Seattle had their bye already. Seattle's a half a game ahead of them in the standings. So that would be interesting. 49ers were a wild card team and had all road games, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Baltimore Ravens are next. So they win 31-24. Ho-hum. They didn't cover the spread. So the Cardinals score a late touchdown and they go for 2 and they miss it, but then they got to go for the onside kick. And look, I get it. He's a wide receiver, but how do you put Nelson Aguilar on your hands team? We've known Nelson Aguilar a long, long time, and he can make big plays, but he's not a hands guy. He is not a hands guy. Lots of drops in his career, and that was funny. So, beautiful there. But anyway, they end up winning, but not covering. But if Nelson Aguilar was not on the hands team, they probably recover that onside kick, and they probably cover. But again, unless you're a gambler, nobody cares. Lamar, coming off that great game last week, and he's playing at a high level. Odell Beckham leaves the game early. Zay Flowers, 5 catches for 19 yards. Bateman, 2 for 34. The leading receiver, 40 yards to Mark Andrews, 40. That was it. That's as many as Justice Hill had out of the backfield. So Gus Edwards pounds in 3 touchdowns. So there's that. Gus Edwards is one of those calls. It's like, well, game script could lend to him getting some work, but they have been so iffy with his usage. It was nice to see them commit to him in the red zone. I don't know. Hopefully that's going forward, because I say this all the time. Gus Edwards is a very good NFL running back. He's always been 5 yards per carry, like each season of his career, even when coming off an ACL. He always plays at a high level. And again, here, it's 52% of the snaps. Justice Hill, for whatever reason, gets 48. I just still can't get my, now they won, fine. I can't get my mind around the fact that Justice Hill is really limiting Gus Edwards' opportunities. I don't see it. And I know the coaches, probably love Justice Hill, but they had their chance last year and they barely used them when Edwards and Dobbins were out. But I won't beat the drum on that too long. Mark Andrews, obviously fine. 40 yards and a touchdown. You would have liked more. Didn't get it. On the other side of the ball, wow. We talked about this in start sits, and I told people, look, Trey McBride had a tough matchup, but I said, there's going to be garbage time here, and he could have a great opportunity. I got lucky on that one because that's exactly what happened. He goes over 100 yards, ton of targets, scores a touchdown, weird play. It was a rugby scrum, gets in the end zone. One of those you thought the referees might blow their whistle. They didn't, but beautiful. He scores, and a lot of people started him. And Trey McBride really, really came through for you. And, they're going to need him, even when Kyler Murray comes back. And that could be this week. Kyler Murray's had a bunch of full practices so far. So my guess is there's at least a 50% chance he comes back this week. We'll know more by Wednesday and Thursday, but I have to think they're going to turn it over to him very, very soon. And that also gives an uptick to Hollywood Brown, who's played well the whole season with Dobbs, but of course will raise the ceiling when we get Kyler Murray in there. I'm going to save Dallas for when Anthony. Let's talk some injuries. Injuries are crazy. I want to say some of that for Anthony too, though. You know what? I think I'm going to save the injuries for Anthony too, because we'll talk about some of those, because there's a bunch of significant injuries, and we definitely want to get to those. The Packers. I don't know what to do with the Packers. And right now, they are not a good offense. The offensive line, Bakhtiari's been down. Usually they overcome that very, very well. Right now, Uncle Ted's in the house. Welcome, Uncle Ted. When we look at this, the Packers just are not a good football team right now. Aaron Jones, the coach, said he's off the injury report, but he's not nearly 100%. So there's that. Anthony Cervino, welcome in.
What's going on, Jim?
Monday.
How's everything going? Feeling good.
Let me put my headphones on here. I forgot to put those on a little bit earlier. So let's, I'm talking to Packers right now. And apparently the coach had said Aaron Jones is off the injury report, but he's not 100%. Right. And the whole thing with them is you're starting him for fantasy because you have to. He's Aaron freaking Jones. And, he got a floor game for you for PPR. But otherwise, until or unless he can be a big engine of this offense, I don't think they have any chance to be successful, because teams have film on Jordan Love. They know he's inaccurate in the intermediate and deep area. Teams can present him looks, make him struggle. Is this offense have any chance of breaking out?
I mean, if it breaks out, it's going to be on Jordan Love turning a corner. And let's face it, Jordan Love fantasy-wise, a lot of garbage time earlier in the season, but it's garbage time. This team was already behind. Jordan Love in the first half does not play well, and then he's trying to climb out of a hole. So, this offense can get better, but it's on Jordan Love to take that step up. It's hard to do when you don't have David Bakhtiari giving you that type of time. You can't get a ground game going. And this wide receiver group, it has a lot of upside. It might be fun to talk about in dynasty fantasy football, but this is a really young core with this quarterback right now.
Yeah, and Christian Watson, unless you have very low expectations, you have flex level expectations, it's very difficult to start him if that's not your expectation. Thoughts? Is Christian Watson a player that you see him the same way, or do you frame it any differently?
I wasn't that big on Christian Watson anyway, and his cost. In off-season fantasy drafts was a little bit high, all things considered, where he was going around. And then this is a guy now 2 years in a row dealing with lingering lower body injury. So there's just so many, red flags on Christian Watson. So, he's somebody I'm also out on. Romeo Doubs is like the only guy I feel comfortable starting week in and week out.
Yeah, and here it was in this game. He hits 9 targets, 18 yards. Now he finds the end zone, fortunately, 18 yards, right? And it's a low volume passing game. Now they had to throw a bit more in this game. They threw 41 times because they were trailing. And that's what happens when they get in heavy trail mode, which may happen a lot now because their defense, it's not really cashing the check. So they're falling behind, which that accelerates the volume. So that makes Dubs, like you said, a starter. But I had 0 shares of Christian Watson.
Yeah.
I said, he had that 4-game stretch. People were saying, oh, he had an 8. No, he had no 8-game stretch. He had a 4-game stretch. And after that, he had week 18, I think he hit 100 yards, but he was like 50 yards a game the rest of the way. He was not the player he was when he caught the league by storm. They made adjustments. They put people over the top, and all of a sudden, now you go from Aaron Rodgers to what at the time was the unknown. I wanted no part of it. Anthony, before we get to the Cowboys, let's talk some injuries. Darren Waller plays about a quarter of the game. Hamstring injury, done. He leads the team in receiving yards with 4. What are we doing with Darren Waller right now? Because he was iffy on the injury report frequently, but he showed up and he had really 2 out of the last 3 games were really good until yesterday. And now he sits most of that game with a hamstring injury. What's our level of concern?
It looked like Waller was turning the corner. The hamstring injury, he was playing through it. And they initially said a couple weeks ago, hey, he's probably going to be on the injury report all season with this hamstring, but he's probably going to play. And now I think that it's like hitting a brick wall where Waller goes down. Then we see Tyrod Taylor go down. And this entire Giants offense, as if it couldn't get any bad enough. It's just dismantling in possibly one of the worst football games that I've ever watched going to overtime. But yeah, there is a concern right now with Darren Waller, and it's not like we can go pick up Bellinger with any confidence right now because the quarterback situation in New York has to improve, and maybe it does. Daniel Jones, it looks like he's cleared for contact again, but like, are we really happy about that? Because Tyrod was at least pushing the ball downfield a little bit.
So, Anthony, when you say that, I was saying to myself, I go, wait a minute. I thought Daniel Jones, it wasn't a serious injury, but Tyrod plays a couple good games. I'm like, I think they're telling the doctors not to clear Daniel Jones for contact. And then within 16 hours of Taylor getting hurt, we cleared him for contact. Oh, really? Because Tyrod Taylor's going to miss a game. I believe it was directly correlated. I believe Daniel Jones could have played. I believe Brian Dable realized his chance to win was Tyrod Taylor. But oh my gosh, how funny is that? Anyway, you're right. This offense is going to be a mess. Darren Waller, I would be surprised if he didn't miss time at this point, because if he missed that whole game, that's a setback injury. Yeah. And I talk about this all the time. The reason you don't see many 30-plus players aside from quarterback in the league is recovery from injury. It's a much slower process. What takes a younger guy 1 or 2 weeks takes an older guy up to 10 weeks. With Keenan Allen last year, I think he played 44 snaps through week 10 last year with a hamstring. And we see Aaron Jones. He's 28. Well, he's not 30, but that's still aging. Aaron Jones has dealt with a hamstring all year long. So there is a world where Darren Waller could be out significant time. So maybe people are optimistic that he's been on the field. Do you think that somebody, if they roster Darren Waller, should they try to trade him off in the hopes that somebody thinks he'll be fine?
What are you going to get for him? And that's the thing with a lot of these star players that are either banged up or underperforming. It's a matter of, are you willing to sell at a discount because you're probably not going to get value back? So that's basically like where I'm at with guys like Darren Waller and like Christian Watt. Like, are we going to get anything close to fair value? The answer is probably no. And yeah, Waller flashed a little bit. 2 out of 3, the past 3 games going into yesterday, at least 16 PPR points, but that one against Buffalo in the middle, only 9. Right. So there's not a lot to go. Like, what are we going to get back for Darren Waller? Like, I wouldn't even give Dalton Schultz back.
And that's speaking volumes. And Dalton Schultz did turn into a pumpkin yesterday.
I wouldn't give Ferguson up.
Right. No. Uncle Ted's saying he'd rather have McBride in at this point. Yeah. Why? I can't fault you on that one at all. Now, Drake London plays. I don't remember the snap count, 23% maybe. We got the same number right around where Waller played. And he was done with a groin injury, didn't come back. At least he's young, so maybe he can heal quickly. But I don't know how serious the injury was, but he didn't come back. And anyway, if he were to miss time, obviously that's problematic. Would that boost anybody on the team?
Van Jefferson, I think the only play he had yesterday, he cost the Atlanta
Dropped.
Falcons the game. Maybe Mac Hollins,
Yeah. Wow.
maybe, but like, there's nothing here. I think Jonnu Smith becomes more valuable. Maybe Cordarrelle Patterson becomes more valuable. But in terms of these wide receivers in Atlanta, it is not good. And
So
before you go, like Drake London, he was somebody I was like very out on because of the situation, not the talent, but he's actually been a high floor PPR player, all but 2 games, double-digit PPR points, and he's gotten going in a few. So that if you're a Drake London fantasy manager, this one kind of stings a little bit if he misses time, especially getting 28th Minnesota against the pass, 22nd Arizona in the next 2 games before the bye week.
Man, exactly correct. So it's bad timing on the injury. Now, in your opinion, so Desmond Ridder takes a hit. They evaluate him for concussion. They clear him to come back. Coach says it was for caution. Do you think he just wanted to get a look at Taylor Heineke? Do you think that was really what the purpose of not bringing Ridder back in was?
I would say so, because you need to know what you have. Like, Ritter's been erratic. He has thrown a couple of games over 300 yards passing, and they're actually throwing a little bit more. But Ritter's also making a lot of mistakes, especially in the past few games that Atlanta has not been playing well. They haven't been winning. So, yeah, you want to see what you have in Taylor Heineke. The trade deadline's right here. Do you try to pull the trigger on Ryan Tannehill? Because he's banged up. There's that connection between. I've been trying to get Ryan Tannehill back with Arthur Smith for 2 years. Do you trade for him right now? Will Levis looks good. You're not going anywhere. Tannehill's not your future. Get what you can, and then I get Tannehill's banged up. And if you can get him back for a late stretch, you're in a really weak NFC South. Tannehill could possibly go win you that division, and who knows in the playoffs.
Exactly. Now, other injuries. So, look, the Rams were dumb. Stafford hurts his thumb, hits it on a helmet. But what do they do later? Before he exits for good, they use him on a trick play where he's the receiver, and he has to stretch out into the end zone, and guess what he lands on?
Yep.
The ball in his thumb. What an incredibly stupid play with a quarterback with an injured thumb. Even if it wasn't that thing where he lands on the ground, there's so many different hits you could take when you're out in the open as a receiver, as a quarterback, that putting him out there, just incredibly stupid. It worked. It got him 2 points. You still got your butt kicked.
I can see if it was a 1-possession game.
Yep.
Sure. You want to risk it? Go ahead. 1-possession game, and you're playing for something. This game was blown open. It was over in the first quarter. They had no business running that play.
No, not now. So there's a chance Stafford misses time here. It's a throwing thumb. And I don't know the severity of the injury, but if Matthew Stafford didn't come back in that game, he was hurt, because Matthew Stafford is one of the great tough guys in the game. And that thumb is going to swell. Whatever happened, there's going to be significant swelling. If he misses time, Brett Rippon is their quarterback. Biggest question of the day. Second, there'll be one later too. What does that do potentially for the fantasy value of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua?
Not good, but was it really that good yesterday against Dallas? When, Dallas Cowboys, when they're on, they could, they've shut down Justin Jefferson, I think, in both career games. Like they can really give enemy offenses a headache, not named San Francisco. And if you look at the box score yesterday, Puka, 3 of 7 for 43. Cooper Kupp, 4 of 10 for 21. It wasn't good yesterday with Matthew Stafford when he was in there. Now this is actually 2 games in a row. Last week against Pittsburgh, where Cooper Kupp under 6 PPR points, 2 games in a row. This is Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
So yeah, it's this. I think that guys like Puka, he's a great story, but that sell high window. What are you going to get for Puka if Stafford misses X amount of time? Because he's like, look at Justin Jefferson with the Kirk Cousins injury. What are you doing with these guys?
And that's going to be the biggest problem.
Puka Nacua under 7 PPR points in 2 out of 3 games.
Right. And if there's no Stafford, look, I get it. Cooper Kupp is a great player, and I get it. Puka Nacua's look phenomenal. If they don't have Matthew Stafford, they're screwed. Because realistically, it's Matthew Stafford's being able to read the defense and the leverage of the defense, making throws before the receiver is actually open. That is a big part of Stafford's game. When you're going to Brett Rippon, those reads aren't there. Defenses are going to disguise a look to make it look like something's there. And Brett Rippon does not have the consistent ability to keep these guys fantasy relevant. And this whole offense is going to be a falling house of cards. That's going to be a very problematic situation. We have Anthony in the house. I'm about the Waller trade market being rough. Uncle Ted, we will talk about Will Levis in a bit for sure. We definitely will. So we mentioned injuries. We talked about the Matthew Stafford one. Well, now Kirk Cousins done for the year. Now, we don't know the true status on Justin Jefferson. He can come back, I believe, for week 10. And if that's the case, and he does come back, what would the loss? Right now, Jaron Hall is their current quarterback. Nick Mullins is on IR till week 10. So Nick Mullins could come back at that point. Some people float up the name Colt McCoy, who has some familiarity with that offense. If there's a non-Kirk Cousins quarterback in that lineup, not knowing who it will be, and Justin Jefferson comes back, does Jefferson take a hit in his fantasy value? And if so, how much of a hit are we talking?
Of course he takes a hit. Kirk Cousins, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. They all can't be Patrick Mahomes. We're all not going to win Super Bowls, and they all can't bring you the rushing floor of Lamar Jackson. But when it comes to pocket passers, there's not many better than Kirk Cousins who could distribute the football the way he does and put the ball, where guys like Justin Jefferson can go win contested catches and everything this guy does really well. So, of course, his fantasy value takes a hit. One name that we could be on the watch for, and it all depends on where the Vikings see themselves, because they were kind of turning the corner. I heard rumors that Washington was getting a lot of calls on Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, man. The Jets. Go Jets. I would like to see, and there's a lot of places he could end up, right? It's always anticlimactic, the trade deadline. We always have all these grand ideas and hope, and then we get Chase Edmonds getting dealed out last year. Like, gee, thanks. It's saving us on the trade deadline. Let's hope we have more excitement here. Kendrick Bourne is undergoing an MRI on his knee. Honestly, he was probably the only functional part of that offense. Ramondre Stevens is a very nice player, very great player, but the situation is terrible. So he's just been a floor play at
he's
best.
done for the year, actually. It's confirmed.
Oh, Kendrick Bourne's done for the year.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I didn't catch that. That's a massive loss. So right now, Demario Douglas, he's flashed in 2 games. Now the passing game is horrible. What level of do we have for Demario Douglas as maybe a bench option with the possibility of becoming a flex in PPR leagues?
I guess we can roster him. They got Juju. They signed Jalen Reagor a couple of days ago. Like it's not. I think they have Kayshon Boutte, the guy from LSU.
They do.
Just when New England looks like they get a little bit of a pulse, they lose one of their more productive players, and Kendrick Bourne would probably be a number 4 on most teams, and he was number 1 here.
My God.
So guys like Demario Douglas, Devontae Parker, it's just a really bad situation in New England. And I feel bad for Mac Jones, because I actually think Mac Jones can play football a little bit. But when you have, again, let's look at some of the weapons around the league. Look at, you have Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has 2 premier receivers, a premier tight end. They even brought in Julio Jones off the street for Jalen Hurts. And Mac Jones has Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Juju.
Man.
They couldn't even give him Jacoby Myers.
No. World beater Jacoby Myers. That was bad. Next one. Curtis Samuel dealt with an injury all week, played, re-injures, re-aggravates, hurts the toe, comes out. Jamison Crowder goes off. Jamison Crowder may not be on the field often, but that guy can play football. There's no question about it. When he plays, if he gets the ball, he is very productive. If Crowder were to be in for Samuel for a week or 2, could you see him as a stopgap? We'll have 4 buys this week. Injuries pile up. Is Crowder somebody in a deep league you might be able to stream if you need somebody?
Yeah, why not? Look how productive he was yesterday. And it was easy matchup, Philly secondary, and now you get New England. Then you get Seattle. Seattle's improving, but you can still throw at him a little bit. So yeah, there's like a nice 2-week window where Jamison Crowder, PPR league, of course, is usable as in a flex spot.
Now, Will Levis, 4 touchdowns, the yardage 238. What I saw was this. They were smart to let him launch the deep pass, and he was very successful on those. He threw a lot of swing passes as well. They weren't using him much in the middle of the field. That tells us what they know about his game. Big arm dude, and we can get him to throw it outfield. We're definitely going to do that. It's a short week this week, and he is starting this week on Thursday night. Are they playing Pittsburgh, I believe? I believe they're playing Pittsburgh. Does that sound right?
Yeah, in Pittsburgh. Thursday night.
Pittsburgh. So that said, in a short week, I don't know how much tape crunching a defense is going to be able to do to game plan, because they literally got to install a game plan like immediately. So what are your thoughts about Levis against Pittsburgh this week in Pittsburgh? Like I said, seeing what we saw yesterday, a lot of deep balls and swings, but not really much in the middle.
I think this could be another potential pop game for Will Levis. Look, this guy could potentially start his career 2-0. Pittsburgh does not look good on either side of the football. Jacksonville kind of had their way with them, as you would expect. And if Tennessee plays the way they did, because Atlanta's they're not an easy out. That's a pretty good defense that Will Levis and primarily DeAndre Hopkins was able to expose. You can throw all over the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this could be hey, let's just throw up DeAndre Hopkins a couple times again and let's go win a football game.
It's a good strategy. Throwing the ball to DeAndre Hopkins usually results positively.
I think Mink is banged up too.
You're right. Minka left that game, and it's a short week, and he was ruled out fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So the odds of him playing right now, I would say, are probably bordering 20% or less, because, again, quick rule out, quick turnaround. That sounds that's a big deal, because that safety, you're right, that's the one who lurks, the center fielder who sneaks and would kind of bait those deep passes. Yeah, that would be a massive loss. So excited for Will Levis on Thursday Night Football. Before we get to the Monday night game, let's talk some Dallas Cowboys, your team. So Anthony, it's on the XM show on Saturday, and when I was giving my DFS suggestions, not a whole big list of them, but I said, look, go with Dak Prescott, go with CeeDee Lamb. I thought in this game, I thought that the offensive line, Tyron Smith didn't play, but I thought they'd be able to hold up against the pressure enough, Aaron Donald and Byron Young, but the secondary is a mess for the Rams. And wow, I didn't think it was this level, but I was going to make a bold prediction on the Sunday show, but we ran out of time. My bold predictions would be Prescott goes for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did 304. Anyway, talk about the Dallas offense team. Tony Pollard, again, just 12 for 53 on the ground. For fantasy, he has not been crushing it. He's had basically he's been a floor with a moderate ceiling play. Talk about Dallas on offense.
This Dallas offense, once again, when they're dominant, they look like the best team in the NFL, and it was working at all 3 phases. I think there was even a special teams return called back, but, defense is scoring points, shutting you down. The offense and Dak Prescott's doing what he wants to do. I think there are a couple stats out there. Dak Prescott targeting Ferguson for the past 3 games, and Dak Prescott targeting CeeDee Lamb is what his completion percentage is through the roof. Now we're starting to see, coming off the bye week, Brandon Cooks get acclimated in this offense. 2 straight games, the touchdown. Brandon Cooks now has a pulse. Do we need to see more from Tony Pollard? I think so, but I don't think Pollard is in that point where okay, they're not going to lose the game because of Pollard, but they're going to eventually need him to win the game. So yeah, it's all well and good when you can go. Most of Dallas's wins this year have looked like this, dominant, but then you also have the San Francisco game. Then you also have the Arizona game where you're not playing with elite and you're playing from behind and you need to go win that football game. And that's what I need to see from Dallas. And I don't have that, again, you can go have these games all you want, but when it matters in the close game, what Dak Prescott are we going to get? And they have to continue feeding CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a quiet year up until 2 weeks ago. Now CeeDee Lamb is looking like a premier receiver like we think he is. So if they continue with this game plan, I think fantasy-wise and in reality, Dallas has a long road of positive things ahead.
They lined up CD Lamb on a number of plays as the isolated X receiver, which a lot of times he's in the slaughter, he's in motion. It was a very versatile performance. It was a grand performance. It was a superstar performance. And this is the level of player we've been expecting and hoping for a few years. And I hope Dallas continues to build on that. And the Ferguson touchdown catch was a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Athleticism and the reason we liked him in the preseason, and we were very heavily rostered in fantasy leagues at the early stages, getting him in the 17th, 18th round. By the end of the day, getting him in the 12th and 13th round. But the targets were down the 2 prior weeks. He only had 4 here, but really that was out of the idea of CD Lamb was going off. It was a blowout win. Prescott only threw 31 passes here. But thoughts on Jake Ferguson going forward?
You know, just that Dallas tight end position. We saw it for the past couple of years since Witten, Jarwin had his little flash time, then Dalton Schultz, and now we have Ferguson. They like using that tight end. And it started with Romo. You can probably go back to Novacek and Aikman. And now you have it with Dak Prescott and the way he used the tight end. That's a heavily used asset in this offense. And the fact that Ferguson was so cheap all offseason, I think people are more enamored. They had Peyton Hendershot. They had the Schoonmaker that they drafted. But to me, it was always Ferguson's job to lose. So Ferguson looks like one of the bigger value tight ends in offseason drafts.
I can't wait for that Dallas-Philadelphia game this weekend. It should be a good one. We've had a lot of lower scoring games this year, but I think the way these two teams match up, I think both offenses have the ability to get to both of the defenses, and I think we're going to see a strong number of points. Your thoughts on that, Anthony?
It should be points galore, and I think the stat is I don't think Jalen Hurts has ever beaten Dak Prescott.
Oh,
I have to double check into that, but I don't think because last year when they played each other twice, obviously. The first one, Dak was hurt when Philly won, and then the second one, Dallas beat Minshew.
Right. What I remember about those recent Dallas-Philly games is that Zeke Elliott would go off. Zeke Elliott just ate them alive.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see them take them out. Now, this year, it's a completely different Eagles team. The Eagles team are very, very good against the run when they used to be very beatable against the run. Anyway, let's talk about the Monday night game. I'm sure we'll be breaking down that Dallas-Philly game when we talk next Monday. So Raiders-Lions tonight. Lions are a big favorite, over a touchdown favorite here. Lions probably, was it 9.5 now, Anthony? Probably right around there. I didn't check it this morning. But
yeah, I saw 9.5 the last time I checked.
Yeah, Lions are big favorites at home. This one actually opened at 8. Then the public quickly jumped on. But the line is still in no man's land. It's more than a touchdown.
It's actually down to 7.5 now. So it's moving back down.
So now, I guess that begs the question when we start. If the line has gone down that much, back below where it opened, the Raiders had 2 big wins before they just let down against Tyson Bagent and the Bears. The Lions are coming off, a beatdown in Baltimore. Lions have been a great home team. The Raiders get Jimmy Garoppolo back, so what? Honestly. Why would the public be coming in strong? Because if it's a 1.5 move, that's a 2-point move. That's massive line movement. Why? What would the public see in the Raiders to make them say, yep, we're going after this one?
I think number one, Jimmy Garoppolo, he is a massive upgrade over Hoyer, and he can win football games. Like Jimmy Garoppolo, I get he's not with Shanahan anymore, but he's a winning NFL quarterback. And I think the public's also a little bit worried. Who are the Detroit Lions? They got demolished by the Baltimore Ravens. So maybe the public could be like, oh, maybe this is the same old Lions. Are they worried about that? I mean, you laugh, but the public, especially with a team like the Lions, could be very skittish.
That's why I'm laughing, because this is a persona that's been built over decades. And as much as they've been winning, it only took one big loss, and people will be like, oh, I want to point this out, though. Let's talk about the Raiders side of the ball first. So Josh Jacobs has been getting a ton of work. Some weeks he gets more targets, but he's very heavily involved. When they're in the red zone, he'll get the ball. So for fantasy, he's been okay. As a runner, he has been horrible. nothing close. I mean, literally not a shell of what he was last year. And the Lions have been a very good defense, both against the run and the pass. Now, the Raiders should have an advantage here in the passing game because the corners on Detroit are absolutely no match for Devontae Adams. And then obviously Jacoby Myers is getting his done. Michael Mayer on and off, but he should have some targets here. What are your thoughts on the Raiders offense and how they fare against this Lions defense that has an on and off pass rush? Sometimes it's really hot.
Yeah, the Lions defense, especially if you look at fantasy wise, they're actually really, really tough. I think they're the best against fantasy running backs, and then you can throw on them. And the strength right now is when Jimmy Garoppolo is in that football game, throwing the football, and Jacoby Myers, exceeding my expectations with them. And of course, you have, Devontae Adams. So you're going to keep running the ball with Josh Jacobs. As bad as it looks, you need to try to establish the run to open everything else up. So, like, there's a chance that the Raiders can get some offense going. And I feel like the Raiders defense isn't as bad as advertised. Like,
correct.
I feel like especially they can defend the pass. They're pretty good at defending the pass and rushing a passer.
And they've done it. Nate Hobbs has missed a couple games. Their best corner. They've been now. Their schedule has been fairly easy. I'm going to give you that. Right. Morning, Charlene. Quickly, I'll answer this for you. Curtis Samuel. We're not sure about Curtis Samuel yet. We left with the toe injury, and so right now he probably does have turf toe. And the fact he left the game and didn't come back, that doesn't bode well for next week. But that's going to be an up in the air thing. We don't have a final word on that. But Anthony, back to the Raiders. So you think they'll run Jacobs? They'll try that. Now, one thing I want to point out, though, also about the Raiders, their offensive line, the tackles, they have been very good in pass pro. They were last year. They actually protected Derek Carr very well, and they are continuing that this year. I think that's going to be a problem for Aiden Hutchinson. So I do think the Raiders will have ability to score points in this game as long as Josh McDaniels crafts up a solid game plan. Welcome, Sauger. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can see a world where the Raiders keep it close, even cover the spread. But if you're the Lions, you need to take care of business after last week. So I think the Lions are going to come out. Dan Campbell's going to have his football team out coming, very hungry and trying to make this a double-digit point victory while the Raiders, Josh McDaniels, playing for his job.
Now, you talked about the Raiders defense. They are playing better this year. I always talk about home Goff and road Goff. Now, Goff did have a good road game a while back, but at home since last year, he has been money at home. The comfort of the dome, the home field, he has just been amazing there. The offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, continues to get his first read schemed open very quickly. He's done that against very good defenses and all other defenses. I don't think there's any issue here that Ben Johnson is going to be able to put Jared Goff in a situation for success. I understand that the pass rush from the Raiders, Max Crosby's great. The injuries to the Lions are on the interior line. Jonah Jackson left guards out. Their center is doubtful. He's not going to play either. But I do believe Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker, I believe they can, to a degree, neutralize Max Crosby. I want to start there. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's going to be big because of the presence of Max Crosby and how he gets to the enemy quarterback. Now, Detroit's offensive line, one of the best in the NFL. They need to neutralize Crosby to give Jared Goff some time. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, it looks like he's probably going in the right direction to play, but he's questionable with an illness. The last time I checked, sports books don't even have props out for Amon-Ra St. Brown. So obviously that would be a big loss.
That's the move in the line, Anthony, because people are bet if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out, I don't think anybody has confidence in the ancillary targets. Josh Reynolds is a fine receiver. Jamison Williams still is not on the same page in the offense. Sam Laporte is fine, but he's not going to be a game breaker. So that you're right, that illness, that would be a problem. So that could be so I think really before even handicapping this game, that would be a real big problem. David Montgomery's out, and that's huge because he is a very big tone setter for that offense and for what they're trying to do. Jahmyr Gibbs, not the same style of runner. We could get production from Jahmyr Gibbs, but you can't get the tone setting from him that puts them into certain situations, allows them to do certain things. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I like what we saw. Now, it was all garbage time last week, obviously, when Jahmyr Gibbs pops. But I think when you look at two players on this Lions offense, you have Jameson Williams, explosive. You have Gibbs, explosive. You say Montgomery's a tone setter. They want to play that smash mouth football. But there's going to be games like last week where the Baltimore Ravens and other good teams are going to have a 2-possession lead over you, and you need to close that gap. And the dink and dunk to St. Brown and Reynolds, Laporta, no, you need to throw the deep pass and score the football to Jameson Williams. You need to be able to get Gibbs in open space and go get those quick scores to reduce gaps in those larger victories. So I think the Lions would be smart if Ben Johnson got these young playmakers involved starting tonight.
So, prediction on the game.
I'm gonna take depending on where this number is, I would take the Raiders to cover, especially if it goes back to like 8 or 9. If it goes as low as 7, I would take the Lions.
So as I look at this game, Dan Campbell has proven a lot to me. And the fact they lost to John Harbaugh, look, as good as Dan Campbell is, John Harbaugh is an amazing coach. And he's able to do many things with his staff. And we saw the game that we wanted to see from Lamar Jackson. I think they're home. I think this is an excellent football team. I think they are right near that top tier of the NFC. And the Raiders, Josh McDaniels is not a good coach. He has weapons. They have advantages in the passing game. I just find it really hard to think that he's going to come out and finally pull up this game plan that's going to have sustained success instead of being reactionary. I don't know how the Lions are going to do it because that's the thing. With no David Montgomery and if I'm around St. Brown's in play, it doesn't make logical sense. But we've got the opportunity where Campbell figures it out, figures a way. This team has good coaching. They're going to win in the trenches. And I think that's going to be a big deal. If they're going to win in the trenches, that is where we win a lot of football games. But now if St. Brown doesn't play, covering a 7.5 line, that has me a little bit nervous. So I'm going to say this. If I wait to bet this until you find out. Yeah. If St. Brown plays, I think the Lions have no issue covering. But if he doesn't play, it's a stay away. Any thoughts with that?
No, I agree there. This is one you definitely wait. Now, if you hear a rumor that kind of that builds a lean one way or another to St. Brown, and you can get some value on this line, I would do that as well. But yeah, you definitely wait and bet this because he's going to be a big part of this game when it's all said and done if he's active.
DraftKings, it's a solid 7, the line right now. Solid 7. So they must have intel about St. Brown because I was 9.5. 2.5 lines, and usually it's a quarterback that moves a line that much. Wow. I'm simply stunned. Now, the prop I want to talk about here, Davante Adams is 74.5 yards. Not been getting it done. But Jimmy G is back. And as good as a defense as the Lions have, there's nothing they're going to be able to do, I think, with their corners to be able to slow him down. I think, if nothing, they're probably going to trail in this game. Jimmy G, if there's a tight window on Adams, he will throw to Myers. I don't think the tight windows are going to be there today. I think Adams goes over. Thoughts?
Yeah, and this is also like Davante Adams. He's played the Lions a bunch, and he's not in Green Bay anymore. It's not Aaron Rodgers, but sometimes players have a team's number, and we know Davante Adams always shows up against certain teams, and the Lions is one of them. So yeah, I would certainly look at the over on his main receiving yards line. I think we got to look at Myers too. Myers has been the favorite target a lot with Jimmy Garoppolo.
61.5 yards of Jacoby Myers. Which one do you like better? Now, and think of how close this is. Myers at 61.5 and Adams at 74.5. That's close. Which one do you like better?
I feel like I like Myers a little bit more because he's been more consistent.
And the over and under on this game, Anthony, I'm intrigued because it's 46.5. This year, that's a high number. And I can make this case for the passing game of the Raiders clicking. But again, it's Josh McDaniels. I'm very, very skeptical of that. And the Lions right now, no Montgomery, not sure about St. Brown. What are we looking at in the 46.5 line?
Normally games in Detroit with the way Goff plays, these games can go over. But that really hasn't been the case. I think, we'd have to go back to see that Carolina went over, but it was 43.5. Atlanta went under 47.5. And then Seattle, a lot of points scored, went over. So this is only, I believe, the fourth home game that the Lions are playing this year. So I'm going to say that I think the under's the play because I don't know how much the Raiders can score.
Exactly. I don't see it. To me, strong lean to the under. Now, one question for you. Charlene, good friend of the show, asks thoughts on dropping Curtis Samuel with his toe injury and picking up Jameson Williams. What are your thoughts there, Anthony?
It's a risk. If you need a high ceiling potential league winner, yeah, I'm not saying he is a league winner, but I think Jameson Williams has that pedigree. I would do it where Samuel's that higher floor player. If you need a little bit of a ceiling in your lineup or on your bench, just in case he starts to click, then yeah, I don't hate the move because you're probably not using Samuel every week right now. He's probably an expendable spot in your bench.
And I think that's a good point. It's what you need the player to be. If you need the player to be a sub-in floor piece, if it's turf toe, we don't know how long he's out either. Yeah. So there's an issue with that. But you're right. If you're looking for a player who you might need to put in to get a big jump later, Williams can develop. He can develop. Now, Dan Campbell's been very forthright of saying he doesn't know the offense. And he admitted that preseason, when they wanted to get him all that work, he was hurt. He was supposed to play a bunch of preseason games, and he got hurt. So, and we see it. The snap share is low. The production is low, but we saw the long touchdown. So there's that. So really, like Anthony said, Charlene, it's what you need from the player. If you need the upside guy, then you go there. But I imagine, again, Curtis Samuel, I imagine, unless we hear otherwise, he might miss a game or so. But I have to think with his role, he probably is able to keep what he's been doing.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony, if people are looking to gamble, where can they find some promos?
You go right here to RotoWire, rotowire.com, go to the sports betting section, and we have an affiliate code, promo code with all of the top legal sports books, and that's where you can find it. And, BetMGM, FanDuel promo code, DraftKings promo code, and you can score bonus bets if you're a new customer and use those bonus bets to build your bankroll.
Now, we have one more comment from Tracy Jump. Mahomes hurt her bad this week. It was tough with Mahomes because it was a great matchup. We knew he had the flu. And it's always tough because we're looking for numbers. These are human beings. We don't know what level of illness there is. We think back, Michael Jordan scored 55, but he's Michael Jordan. I mean, Patrick Mahomes may be Superman, but he's not the level of Superman that Michael Jordan was. Michael Jordan could be on his deathbed and score 40, I think. But all that said, it was rough with Mahomes. It may have been the worst game I've seen him play. And knowing that, and knowing that we've had Bill Belichick go at him, John Harbaugh go at him, Lou Anarumo go at him, some people are saying that it was like, Denver just came up with a great game. Period. Full stop. All right. Ease down, bucko. He had to have an issue with the flu. Think about if you were working. If you showed up to work and you were within 24 hours of having the flu, how efficient on your job would you be?
Right.
Any thoughts on that, Anthony?
It's like the Denver Broncos, if you go back to a few weeks ago when they played, it wasn't the greatest showing from the Kansas City offense. Mahomes was a little bit under the weather, and it's Denver. Like, they're actually a talented football team when it comes to roster, and Sean Payton is a really good head coach. So games like this are going to happen. Am I a little bit concerned by how this Kansas City offense looks overall and the fact that, hey, On the East Coast, you have Eric Bieniemy getting Sam Howell to throw for 400 yards. Is the loss of Eric Bieniemy a little bit more significant than people think? Yes. But it's also Mahomes, and I think he'll get back going.
But Tracy, I know I had Mahomes in an important league of mine, and I had to start him. It's like the rule kind of is you can't sit Patrick Mahomes, because we've seen times where we can make a case and it didn't work. So I know I feel awful. All we can do, like Anthony said, start him next week. He's going to be fine. They're playing the Dolphins, right? Mm-hmm. And overseas, Germany. And that I still expect that game's going to be fun to watch and put some fire. So he'll be back at it. All right, Anthony, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
You can follow me at The Real NFL Guru. All my live content, podcast content at the Face Off Sports Network, fffaceoff.com, and my day job here at RotoWire Gambling Group.
Yeah, and make sure you're watching Anthony's show and you're following him. It's always great stuff. Like I always tell you, there was a time a couple of years back, I had the pleasure of working with Anthony for an entire offseason. It was just great work, and his knowledge level, as you hear all the time, is off the charts, and you definitely want to follow him. All right, everybody, for Anthony Cervino, I'm Jim Coventry. Catch everybody tomorrow. Have a great day.